Any of you that have taken an interest in airsoft weaponry, such as the ones pictured here, not a sponsored video, may have wondered how on earth it is that they are legal given that they look exactly like a regular firearm. In fact, airsoft is the generally and readily accepted term to encompass most things that are a imitation firearm. But there's a difference between an imitation firearm and a realistic imitation firearm, which draws the comparisons and the distinctions in the law, which I'm going to explain in this video, along with a special bonus, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel. So on this channel, you know that I am not just a barrister, but I am a black belt barrister. And so I'm going to talk to you about some training later on in this video that you can do with me and some special forces veterans. So make sure you watch to the end to find out about that. And now when it comes to firearms, most of you will know, even if you've had nothing to do with firearms before, that you need a certificate to hold any kind of firearm or shotgun or whatever. And that's contained with the primary legislation in the Firearms Act of 1968. But when it comes to airsoft, there's a specific section within the Firearms Act which is under 57A. And it's an exception. It's exactly that. An airsoft gun is not to be regarded as a firearm for the purposes of this act. But there's obviously a lot more detail to it, which I'm coming to in this video. An airsoft gun is a barreled weapon of any description which is designed to discharge only a small plastic missile, whether or not it's capable of discharging anything else, and is not capable of discharging a missile of any kind with kinetic energy at the muzzle that exceeds the permitted level. Now, the permitted kinetic energy level is, in the case of a weapon which is capable of discharging 2 or more successively without repeated pressure on the trigger, 1.3 joules. And in any other case, which is usually a single one, not more than 2.5. Now, a small plastic missile is defined as that which is made wholly or partly from plastics, spherical, and doesn't exceed 8 millimeters in diameter. But there was a significant argument and back and forth over permitting airsoft weaponry, which are imitation or realistic imitation weaponry. Now, the distinction is that a realistic imitation firearm is that which, other than an expert, would not be able to tell is an imitation. And so clearly, to anybody else, it would look like a regular firearm. But then we move to the Violent Crime Reduction Act of 2006 and the Realistic Imitation Firearms Regulations of 2007, which defined at least the colors which are to distinguish a realistic imitation firearm for a standard imitation firearm. That being typically a two-tone weapon, at least one of the colors defined in these regulations. So if one of these has a bright red, bright orange, bright yellow, bright green, bright pink, bright purple, or bright blue in color as a two-tone with the rest of the item itself, it will be distinguished from being a realistic. And so then it becomes just an imitation rather than a realistic imitation. And so long as it conforms to everything else, then it will be an airsoft weaponry, and it is not to be regarded as a firearm for the purposes of this act. But if it is a realistic imitation firearm. But of course, the law imposes much stricter regulations and restrictions on the possession and the sale of realistic imitation firearms compared to others, which are not realistic, standard imitation firearms. For example, it is illegal to sell a realistic imitation firearm to someone under 18, and it's also an offense. This is one thing that many people fall foul of, and my son asked me about the other day. He said, can we spray paint something like this to one solid color? And would that make it a realistic imitation firearm? And given his young, tender age, I thought that was a very clever question to ask, because it would be an offense to modify a standard imitation firearm to make it look like a realistic imitation firearm. So if you took one that was two-tone with bright red, orange, yellow, green, pink, or whatever, and sprayed the whole thing black or dark grey or gunmetal grey or something else that would make it look like a realistic imitation firearm, that would then not only be an offence in and of itself, but it would then create these restrictions for using it and so on. Now, the Realistic Imitation Firearms Regulations 2007 provides defenses also for airsoft skirmishing. And that is whereby somebody can possess one of these realistic imitations for the purposes of airsoft skirmishing under specific circumstances, such as the place obviously needs to hold third-party liability insurance in connection with the activities, and quite clearly that they're only going to be used in connection with one of those specified activities. But also don't forget that even if you have something that is not one of these airsoft weaponry, even if it's something that cannot actually fire anything at all, if you were to take even a toy water pistol, for that matter, spray painted black so that it looked very much like a real weapon. If you were to take that out in public and cause somebody else alarm and distress, even if it is just a toy but it's sprayed black, this could then still be an imitation firearm. And as provided under 16A of the Firearms Act, it is an offence for any person to have in his possession any firearm or imitation firearm with intent by means to cause or enable another person to cause any other person to believe that unlawful violence will be used against them or another person. There is also Section 4 of the Public Order Act, which is making it an offence to cause someone to believe that there would be unlawful immediate violence used against them. And if any person uses a toy, especially if it looks like a firearm in a threatening manner, then they could be charged under the Public Order Act as well. So do bear in mind that even if these things are toys, or certainly if they are airsoft and they are capable of discharging any kind of missile, even if it's those that make it an airsoft weapon, you could still be charged for causing someone else immediate fear of violence. But if you are interested in the use of airsoft and weaponry, particularly in teams and close combat skills, many of you know that I do close combat training as well as lots of other kind of training. I've organised 2 training weekends. Option A in July, that will be the 8th and the 9th of July. And secondly, option B will be the 16th and 17th of September. That will be with me in person for legal input for self-defense and the legal use of force and how it can be justified. But along with me, you get several other veterans, some of whom still serving, so won't be named, but all of whom have served with the armed forces, trained the elite forces, trained the police, and between us, we will be training you on close quarter combat skills with behavioral detection and weapon disarming techniques. We'll be training you on close protection skills so you can better protect your family. We will have a non-shooting pistol training drill, including weapon retention and dealing with malfunctions, team training and other drills, and so long as we get time, some specialist non-shooting rifle training. So if you're interested in joining us on either of these weekends, it's only going to be £200 per person. That would include tea and coffee on the days, but not accommodation. There's a link in the description below to pay your deposit and choose the option that you prefer. There are just a handful of spaces left on the July course, but of course you are welcome to choose September as well. As soon as you pay the deposit, you'll get a bit more information and some pre-reading. But in the meantime, here's a trailer we had made just for this training. Enjoy.
Firearm Academy is the first and only time civilians can get a taste of military-style training.
You're going to be pushed to your limit. All of our instructors are military or police or martial artists that have taught the military.
You'll learn to spot danger, how to recognise body language, micro-expressions of people.
How military and special forces conduct close quarter combat operations as well as the police. Tactics on rapid entry.
And then we'll pressure test you, we'll put you with a partner, we'll give you someone to protect and we'll attack them using all the previous skills, but now you're responsible for someone.
Close protection, behavioural detection.
So if you have to use the skills, you can justify them.
The physical threats if someone attacks you, how to avoid them, evade it, disarm it if necessary, if you need to pin them, control them.
Then we put you under pressure that you've never been under before.
You've got to learn that manoeuvres, that tactics, that body language, that communication. And then we'll do all of the same again, but we'll introduce some weapons. And we'll have people attack you from different directions, which is real life. People don't get attacked from the front.
Learn the weapons that the SF use, learn the tools the SF use. If you can do that and you pass the course, you then can educate all the people either in your company or in your dojo.
This is suitable for military, police, close protection officers, martial artists, and anyone that wants to further their career along this type of work.